6 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the galactic rim, and the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined. The morning alarm on Kepler 442b sounded different now. Instead of the gentle chime that Dr. So Young had programmed, it was a harsh warning buzzer that made everyone jump. Governor XL9 of the Kepler colony stood in the atmospheric control room, staring at red warning lights that covered every panel. The oxygen levels were dropping, and the carbon dioxide scrubbers were working at only 60% efficiency. 3 million colonists depended on these systems to breathe, and nobody knew how to fix them. We followed the instruction files. The chief engineer reported, his voice shaking. We tried. Everything Dr. So Young left for us, but the quantum stabilizers keep failing. The backup systems are running, but they were only meant to last a few weeks, not months. The governor looked out the viewport at the sprawling cities below. Millions of beings, going about their daily lives not knowing that their world was slowly becoming unlivable. The evacuation ships could maybe carry 50,000 people, and it would take years to move everyone. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Zix-4 watched his merchant fleet prepare for another dangerous run through the Centauri trade routes. Pirates had attacked 17 convoys in the past month, and his cargo ships had no real weapons. The human peacekeeping fleets used to patrol these routes, but now they were empty space filled with predators. Where is Captain Dong-hyun when we need him? His first officer muttered. The human tactical genius had designed the patrol patterns that kept the trade routes safe for decades. His defensive strategies had been so effective that most aliens had forgotten pirates even existed. Now criminal organizations from across the galaxy were moving into the unprotected zones. The Skull Raiders had claimed 3 entire star systems as their territory. The Black Comet pirates were charging tribute from anyone who wanted to pass through their space. The galaxy was becoming a dangerous place for honest traders. Captain Zix-4 had tried to hire mercenaries, but they wanted more money than his cargo was worth. The human peacekeepers had protected the routes for free as part of their service to galactic civilization. Now that service was gone, and nobody wanted to replace it. The medical crisis was getting worse every day. Dr. Kep-7 worked frantically in her laboratory on Vega Prime trying to recreate the human cure for the vegan plague. The disease had killed billions before Dr. Jihai developed the treatment, but the human scientist had encrypted her research files before leaving. We have the basic formula, Dr. Kep-7 reported to the Vegan High Command, but we cannot understand the molecular binding process. The humans used some kind of quantum bioengineering that our technology cannot replicate. We need at least 10 years to develop our own version. The vegan commander slammed his fist on the table. 10 years. The plague is already spreading to the outer colonies. We are losing thousands of people every day. Can we not break the encryption on the human files? The encryption is beyond our abilities, the doctor admitted. Dr. Jihai used human quantum computers that work differently from our systems. The password changes every day based on algorithms we do not understand. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Human medical technology had kept dozens of species healthy, but the aliens had never learned how the treatments actually worked. They had just accepted the cures and asked for more when they needed them. The political situation was becoming even more dangerous. The Rigel Accords that had kept peace between the major powers for centuries were falling apart without human mediation. The treaty was complex with hundreds of clauses that dealt with trade disputes, territory rights, and military agreements. Ambassador, Diplomat Vel 3 of the Taucidian Empire stood before the Galactic Council as angry representatives from dozens of worlds shouted at each other. The Andromedan Collective was claiming mineral rights in Orion space. The Vegan Federation was demanding compensation for old war damages. The Centauri Republic was threatening to close their space lanes to all foreign ships. The human diplomat Seung-ho used to handle these disputes, the ambassador said quietly. He understood all the old treaties and knew how to find compromises that everyone could accept. We never learned his methods because we thought he would always be there to solve our problems. The Orion Federation representative stood up, pointing an angry finger at the Andromedan delegate. Your people are stealing our resources just because the humans are not here to stop you. The Andromedan commander laughed coldly. The humans made us weak with their peace treaties. Now we take what we need to survive. If you cannot defend your territory, then you do not deserve to keep it. Fighting broke out in the council chamber as delegates from different species began pushing and shoving. Security guards tried to restore order, but the damage was done. The fragile peace that humanity had carefully maintained was crumbling. Young alien leaders who had grown up in the peaceful galaxy were unprepared for these challenges. Commander Rix 5 of the Centauri Defense Force had always relied on human tactical advice. Now he faced pirate raids and border disputes with no idea how to respond. I remember when engineer Kyung-soo solved the reactor crisis on Centauri 7, he told his staff. We thought it was impossible, but he found a solution in 3 days. He made it look easy, but none of us understood how he did it. The same pattern was repeated everywhere. Alien civilizations had become dependent on human problem-solving skills. Human engineers had fixed impossible technical problems. Human doctors had cured incurable diseases. Human diplomats had solved unsolvable conflicts. But the aliens had never learned to do these things themselves. The economic collapse was accelerating. Trade between systems dropped by 70% as the routes became too dangerous. The galactic currency was losing value because human banks had provided the stability that kept it strong. Manufacturing slowed down because human technology was breaking down and nobody knew how to repair it. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, the massive factories that produced starship components were shutting down one by one. The human-designed automated systems required constant adjustment, but the alien technicians could only follow the basic maintenance procedures. We are like children playing with toys. We do not understand, the chief engineer admitted. The humans built these systems, but they never taught us the principles behind them. We can push buttons and follow instructions, but when something breaks, we are helpless. The refugee crisis was growing. As worlds became uninhabitable without human technology, the atmospheric processors were failing. The medical systems were breaking down and the defense networks were shutting off. Millions of beings were looking for new homes, but every world had the same problems. The galaxy that had seemed so advanced and stable just 6 months ago was revealing itself to be built on foundations of human knowledge and dedication. Without humanity holding everything together, the great civilization was collapsing. Like a house of cards, in the abandoned human embassy on the galactic capital world, dust was settling on the desks where human diplomats had worked to keep peace. The empty halls echoed with the memory of voices that had spent centuries trying to help everyone get along. The aliens were finally beginning to understand what they had lost. It was not just human technology or human knowledge. It was human commitment to making the galaxy work for everyone. Now they were learning the hard way that civilization required more than just taking what others provided. The galaxy was holding its breath, waiting to see if anyone could learn to fill the empty spaces that humanity had left behind. But as each day passed, it became more clear that the aliens had never really understood what humans did for them. And far beyond the galactic rim, humanity watched and waited. The Void Reapers had awakened and death followed in their wake. The first systems to fall were the outer colonies where the alien search fleet had vanished. Entire worlds went silent overnight, their distress signals cutting off mid-transmission. The galaxy watched in horror as ancient nightmares became deadly reality. On Proxima Station, Dr. Kep-7 stared at the emergency broadcasts flooding her communication system. The massive space station served as a medical hub for the outer rim. But now, it was filling with refugees from dead worlds. Ships arrived every hour carrying survivors who spoke of impossible things. The machines came from the Dark One, refugee whispered to the doctor. They were bigger than our cities, and they moved like living things. Our weapons did nothing to them. They just absorbed the energy and grew stronger. Commander Zixon had escaped the initial encounter with the Void Reapers, but half his fleet was gone. The survivors brought back sensor data that made no sense. According to known physics, the enemy constructs could bend space itself, and their technology was millions of years ahead of anything the galaxy possessed. The Void Reapers were not just machines. They were something far worse. They harvested entire civilizations, consuming not just the people, but their knowledge, their culture, and their very essence. The ancient constructs had been doing this for millions of years, turning the galaxy into a feeding ground. Admiral, Heywan stood in the command center on New Seoul, watching the reports with growing alarm. The Void Reapers were moving faster than Professor Jae-sung had predicted. They were supposed to have more time to prepare, but the ancient machines had changed their pattern. The enemy is adapting, reported Chief Analyst Dong-min. They have learned from previous cycles and now they strike multiple targets simultaneously. The old records show they used to attack one system at a time, but now they are coordinating across hundreds of light years. President Soo-jin called an emergency session of the Colony Council. The debate that had raged for months was now meaningless. The Void Reapers would not stop with the alien species. They would consume everything in the galaxy, including Humanity Fleet. Admiral Bora argued for immediate military intervention. "We have the technology to fight them," she declared. "Our new weapons can damage their constructs, and our shields can protect our ships. We must act now before they grow too strong." General Sun Hee disagreed. "The aliens never listened to our warnings about this threat," she reminded the council. "They called us paranoid and dismissed our evidence. Why should we risk human lives to save people who rejected our help?" The argument continued as reports kept arriving from the dying galaxy. The Kepler colony had fallen after its failing atmospheric systems left the population too weak to evacuate. The Centauri mining worlds were harvested in a matter of hours. The vegan medical stations were consumed along with all their research. Young Commander Hee-jin watched the refugee broadcasts with tears in her eyes. She saw alien children crying for parents who would never return. She saw doctors and nurses working desperately to save people with injuries that no medicine could heal. "I know we are angry at them," she told the council. "But those children did not vote to ignore our warnings. Those doctors did not dismiss our research. They are innocent, and they are dying." Debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the galaxy. A transmission had broken through the Void Reaper interference coming from Proxima Station. The voice belonged to Dr. Chang-min, a human doctor who had stayed behind when humanity departed. Admiral Heywan. "This is Dr. Chang-min calling from Proxima Station." The voice was weak but clear. "I remained here to continue treating patients who could not be moved. The station is under attack by the Void Reapers, but we are trying to evacuate the children." The transmission was breaking up, but they could hear explosions in the background. Dr. Chang-min had built the medical facility on Proxima Station and trained its entire staff. He had dedicated his life to healing anyone who needed help, regardless of their species. "We have 3,000 children in the pediatric ward," the doctor continued. "Most are alien species, but some are human colonists who were visiting when the attacks began. The evacuation ships cannot carry everyone, and the Void Reapers will be here in 6 hours. Commander Hye-jin stood up immediately. "Those children are our responsibility," she declared. Dr. Chang-min stayed behind to help them when he could have come home with us. "We cannot abandon him now." The council chamber fell silent as the weight of the decision pressed down on them. They could continue hiding and let the galaxy burn, or they could risk everything to save people who had rejected them. The moral choice was clear, but the practical risks were enormous. Admiral Heywan looked at the faces around the table and saw the same expression on everyone. The humans had always been the species that helped others even when it was dangerous, even when it was thankless. They could not change who they were. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We go to Proxima Station immediately. All ships are to be ready for combat in 2 hours. We will show the galaxy that humanity has not forgotten how to fight." The human colony erupted into activity as the greatest fleet in their history prepared for battle. Engineer Wu Jin loaded his most advanced weapons onto the ships. Dr. Young-soo packed medical supplies that could treat any species. General Sun Hee programmed tactical systems that could coordinate with alien forces. But this would not be like their previous role in galactic society. This time humanity was returning as warriors, not servants. They would fight the Void Reapers, but they would do it on their own terms. The galaxy would learn that human compassion was matched by human strength. The fleet that emerged from hyperspace near Proxima Station was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Human ships had always been sleek and peaceful looking, but these vessels were clearly built for war. They bristled with weapons that glowed with unknown energy, and their shields shimmered with power. Captain Hyun-woo opened a channel to all galactic forces. "This is the human fleet," he announced. "We are here to fight the Void Reapers and evacuate civilians. Any ship that wants to join us is welcome, but we will not waste time on politics or arguments." The alien ships that had been fleeing in panic suddenly stopped and turned around. The humans were back, and they were ready to fight. The galaxy had rejected human warnings, but humanity had not rejected the galaxy. Admiral Haiwan watched the tactical displays as Void Reaper constructs approached from multiple directions. The enemy was vast and ancient, but they had never faced humanity at full strength. The time for hiding was over. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity would not be fighting alone. For the first time in over a year, alien and human ships prepared to face a common enemy. The species that had driven humanity away were about to learn what they had truly lost. The Void Reapers had awakened, but so had the sleeping giant of human determination. The galaxy would see what happened when humanity stopped trying to please everyone and started fighting for what was right. Commander Hyojin smiled as she watched alien ships forming up behind the human fleet. They were all about to discover that sometimes walking away was the only way to teach others how to walk together. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like avenging angels arriving at the moment of greatest darkness. Proxima Station hung in space, surrounded by Void Reaper constructs that looked like mechanical spiders the size of moons. Their dark hulls absorbed light and energy, making them almost invisible against the star field. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with calm determination. The enemy had numbers, but humanity had spent a year preparing. For this moment, Engineer Woo Jin had created weapons that could pierce Void Reaper armor, and Dr. Young-soo had developed shields that could resist their energy drains. Fire at will, he ordered quietly. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that lit up space like miniature suns. The energy beam struck the Void Reaper constructs, and for the first time in galactic history, the ancient machines took damage. Their dark hulls cracked and sparked as human quantum disruptors tore through armor that had resisted everything for millions of years. The Void Reapers turned toward this new threat, their massive forms moving with impossible grace. But the human ships were ready. General Sun Hee had studied every piece of data from the search fleet and developed tactics specifically for fighting these monsters. Evasive Pattern Alpha, she commanded. The human ships scattered in perfect coordination, each one following flight paths that made them impossible to target. The aliens watched in amazement as humanity danced through space like they had been born to fly. Commander Zixan brought his surviving ships into formation behind the human fleet. For the first time in months, he felt hope. The humans were not just fighting, they were winning. Each human ship was worth 10 alien vessels in combat, but they fought with precision that made them even more effective. "We are seeing impossible things," his tactical officer reported. "The human weapons are actually damaging Void Reaper constructs. Their shields are holding against energy drains that should consume any ship in seconds." "How did they develop this technology?" Zixan smiled grimly. "They had a year to prepare while we were busy ignoring their warnings. They used that time well on Proxima Station. Dr. Chang Min worked frantically to evacuate the children as explosions shook the medical facility outside. The human fleet had bought them time, but the Void Reapers were adapting to the new weapons. The ancient machines began combining their constructs into larger forms. Admiral Haiwan watched the enemy adaptation with professional interest, but no fear. The humans had expected this and prepared accordingly. Dr. So Young had weaponized her terraforming technology, creating environmental barriers that could slow even Void Reaper movements. "Deploy the stellar disruption mines," he ordered. Space around the station filled with devices that looked like glowing flowers. Each mine created a localized distortion in space-time that made hyperspace travel impossible. The Void Reapers found themselves trapped in normal space where human weapons could reach them, but humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology. It was their restored faith in cooperation. Commander Hyojin opened communication channels to every alien ship in the area. "This is Commander Hyojin to all galactic forces," she announced. "We need to coordinate our attacks." For the first time in over a year, human and alien forces began working together as equals. General Sun Hee shared her tactical data with alien commanders who had previously dismissed her strategies. Dr. Ji-Hai transmitted medical protocols that could treat wounded aliens and humans alike. The tide of battle began to turn as the combined fleet learned to fight as one. The aliens brought knowledge of Void Reaper behavior patterns while humans provided the weapons and tactics needed to exploit those weaknesses. Together they were stronger than either side could be. Alone, Elder Veltar commanded a group of Tau Cetian ships that had learned human formation flying. His elderly wisdom combined with human innovation created strategies that confused the ancient enemy. The Void Reapers had faced countless civilizations, but never ones that could adapt so quickly. Captain Rix 5 found himself following human tactical instructions without question. The same pride that had made aliens reject human warnings now drove them to prove worthy of human cooperation. They fought harder than they ever had before, because they finally understood what they had lost. The battle raged across multiple star systems as more Void Reaper constructs emerged from the dark void between galaxies. But each time they appeared, human ships were waiting. Engineer Wu Jin had developed sensors that could detect the enemy across impossible distances. Dr. Youngsu worked tirelessly in mobile medical ships, treating casualties from both human and alien forces. The new medicines she had developed worked miracles, healing injuries that would have been fatal just hours before alien doctors watched in amazement, as human medical technology saved lives they had given up for lost. The final confrontation came at the Sol System Humanity ancient birthplace. The largest Void Reaper mothership had positioned itself near Earth, preparing to harvest the cradle of human civilization. But Admiral Heiwan had expected this and prepared a trap. The human homeworld was protected by defensive systems that made their previous technology look primitive. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons powered by the planet itself. Earth had become a fortress that could defend the entire solar system. "Come and take it," Admiral Heiwan broadcast to the Void Reaper mothership. The ancient machine accepted the challenge, sending its smaller constructs against Earth defenses. But humanity had learned from every battle. The defensive grid adapted to each attack, becoming stronger with every exchange. The Void Reapers found themselves facing an enemy that grew more dangerous the longer they fought. Captain Hyunwoo led the final assault on the mothership itself. His ship dove through defensive fire that could have destroyed planets, but human shields held the quantum disruptors, tore into the ancient construct core, causing chain reactions that spread throughout the massive vessel. The mothership died in a blaze of light that could be seen from neighboring star systems as it collapsed the remaining Void Reaper constructs. Across the galaxy went silent. The ancient threat that had haunted civilizations for millions of years was finally ended. In the aftermath, humanity did not simply return to their old role. Ambassador Tae Min presented a new charter for galactic cooperation to the assembled species. This document was different from previous treaties. It was based on mutual respect and shared responsibility, rather than human service to ungrateful neighbors. "We will not be your servants again," he declared calmly, "but we will be your partners if you prove worthy of partnership. The galaxy must learn to work together as equals or face the next crisis alone." The aliens had learned their lesson the hard way. They had seen what happened when they rejected human wisdom, and they had witnessed human power when it was finally unleashed. They would not make the same mistakes again. Captain Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Unity Station. Built through the combined efforts of all species, he watched ships from dozens of worlds working together on projects that would have been impossible before humanity departure. Sometimes you have to walk away to teach others how to walk together, he reflected. The galaxy was stronger now because it had learned to value all its members, not just take from the most generous. The ancient threat was gone, but the lessons remained. The galaxy would face new challenges, but now they would face them together as equals. The age of human servitude was over. The age of true cooperation had begun. 1 year had passed since humanity disappeared, and the galaxy was dying. The Galactic Council met in emergency session as reports poured in from across known space. 17 worlds had been evacuated due to system failures. The Centauri trade routes were now controlled by pirates. The vegan plague had spread to 43 colonies and millions were dead. Elder Veltar of Tau Ceti stood before the assembled delegates. his aged face showing the weight of desperation. "We must find the humans," he declared. "We must bring them back before everything we have built turns to ash." Commander Zixon of the Vegan military nodded grimly. "Our long-range sensors have detected energy trails leading toward the galactic rim. The humans left signs for us to follow, but the trail is growing cold. We need to act now." The search fleet that launched 3 days later was the largest cooperative effort the galaxy had ever attempted without human coordination. 50 ships from 12 different species, all working together despite their growing conflicts. Each vessel carried their best scientists, engineers, and diplomats. Captain Rix 5 commanded the lead ship, a massive exploration vessel packed with the most advanced scanning equipment the aliens could find. They followed the fading energy signatures left by human hyperspace drives through star systems that no one had ever explored. The first clues came from an abandoned monitoring station orbiting a dead star in the outer rim. The human outpost was empty, but the computers still held data logs. Scientist Yunji had left detailed records of her observations, but the files were encrypted with puzzles that tested the reader's understanding of galactic history. The station monitored deep space energy patterns for 70 years, the chief science officer reported. "The data shows regular pulses coming from beyond our galaxy every 10,000 years. The last pulse was recorded 8 months ago." Elder Veltar studied the readings with growing concern. What kind of energy source could be detected across intergalactic space, he wondered. The humans were tracking something big. Meanwhile, on the hidden world of New Sol, Admiral Hei-Wan watched the alien search fleet through long-range sensors. The human colony was thriving in ways that surprised even their own people. Without the constant demands of galactic service, they had time to focus on their own development. The advanced laboratories hummed with activity as human scientists pushed the boundaries of technology. Engineer Wu Jin had developed fusion reactors that were 10 times more efficient than the ones powering the galaxy. The new designs could provide unlimited clean energy, but they required materials that only existed. In human space, Dr. Youngsu worked in the Medical Research Center, developing treatments that made their old plague cure look simple. The new medicines could heal genetic damage, repair organs, and extend lifespans by centuries, but the aliens would never see these miracles unless they learned to treat humanity as equals. General Sun He supervised the construction of defensive systems that made human military technology look primitive. The new weapons could disable enemy ships without destroying them. The shields could protect entire star systems from attack, but they were designed to defend human space, not to be given away to ungrateful neighbors. The Colony Council met every day to debate whether they should help the dying galaxy president. Su Jin argued that humanity had no obligation to save people who had ignored their warnings. But many colonists had friends among the alien species, and watching them suffer was painful. Young Commander Ye Jin had been monitoring alien communications, and the reports were heartbreaking. Children were dying from diseases that humans could cure in minutes. Entire civilizations were collapsing because they could not maintain the technology humans had built for them. "We cannot just stand by and watch genocide," she argued in the council meeting. "Even if they treated us badly, they do not deserve to die because they were foolish." But Admiral Hei-Wan reminded the council of how the aliens had laughed at human warnings. They called our evidence of the ancient threat paranoid fantasy. They said we were making up stories to gain power over them. Why should we risk our lives for people who would not listen to us? The debate continued for hours as the colony leaders struggled with their conscience. They had the power to save the galaxy, but they also had the right to protect themselves and their families. The humans had learned from bitter experience that good intentions were not always appreciated back in normal space. The alien search fleet had found more abandoned human outposts. Each station contained more clues about the mysterious threat that had driven humanity to prepare for departure. Professor Jae Sung had left detailed historical analysis, showing the pattern of galactic extinctions that repeated every 10,000 years. The evidence was overwhelming. Ancient civilizations had thrived and then vanished completely, leaving only archaeological traces. The cycle had repeated dozens of times across galactic history. But the current galactic species had never learned this history because they focused only on their own brief civilizations. The search fleet pushed deeper into unexplored space, following energy trails that grew stronger as they traveled toward the galactic edge. Their sensors detected massive structures in the void between galaxies, dark shapes that absorbed light and energy from surrounding space. "What are those things?" Captain Rix 5 asked his science officer as the alien fleet approached the mysterious objects. "The readings are impossible," the scientist replied. "They appear to be artificial constructs, but they are larger than star systems. The energy signatures match the pulses we detected from the human monitoring stations." The alien ships slowed their approach as they realized they were looking at something that defied their understanding of technology. The dark structures stretched across light years of space, connected by energy conduits that pulsed with malevolent purpose. Commander Zixen ordered his tactical officer to prepare weapons, but the officer reported that their targeting systems could not lock onto the massive constructs. The objects seemed to exist partially outside normal space, making them impossible to attack with conventional weapons. Then the structures began to move. Sections of the dark constructs detached and moved toward the alien fleet with speed that should have been impossible for objects so large. The search ships tried to retreat, but their engines failed as some kind of energy field surrounded them. "Emergency transmission to all galactic forces," the communications officer shouted into his radio. "We have found the source of the ancient threat, but we are trapped. Warn everyone that the machines are awakening." The transmission cut to static as the alien ships disappeared into the dark constructs. The galaxy lost contact with their best hope of finding humanity, just as they discovered the threat that had driven the humans away on New Sol. The human monitoring stations detected the alien fleet vanishing into the Void Reaper constructs. The ancient machines were waking up earlier than predicted, and they had already claimed their first victims. Admiral Haywan called an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. The debate about helping the galaxy was over. The Void Reapers were active, and they would not stop with the alien species. Humanity would have to fight whether they wanted to or not. But first, they needed to decide whether to warn the galaxy about what was coming or let the aliens face the threat alone. The search fleet had found the human secret, but they had paid for that knowledge with their lives. Commander Hyejin argued for immediate action. "We have a moral duty to warn them," she said. "The alien search fleet died trying to save their people. We cannot let their sacrifice be meaningless." President Sujin looked at the faces around the council table. The time for hiding was over. The galaxy would need human help whether they admitted it or not. The question was whether humanity was ready to forgive and fight for people who had rejected them. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the last human starship in galactic space. His hands moved across the control panel with practiced ease, but his heart felt heavy. The massive vessel hummed quietly around him, filled with the sounds of a crew preparing for the longest journey they had ever taken. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council had made their final decision. They would not listen to human warnings about the ancient threat approaching from beyond the rim. They called human concerns paranoid and their evidence fabricated. The other species laughed when Ambassador Taemin presented his research about the Void Reapers. Now, humanity was leaving. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the faces of alien representatives from dozens of worlds. They looked confused and some even angry. The Centauri delegate spoke first, asking why humans were abandoning their duties. The vegan commander demanded to know who would maintain the trade routes. The Andromedan scientist wanted to know about the medical research that was half-finished. Hyunwoo took a deep breath and activated the transmission that would be heard across the galaxy. "This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Terran Defense Fleet, speaking for all of humanity," he began. "We have served this galaxy for 300 years. We have mediated your wars, healed your sick, and protected your trade. We have shared our knowledge and our lives with you." He paused, watching the alien faces on the screen grow more concerned. "For decades we warned you about patterns in ancient history. We showed you evidence of a great threat that returns every 10,000 years. We begged you to prepare. We asked you to work together, but you called us paranoid. You said we were trying to scare you into giving us more power." The Tau Cetian elder interrupted, asking what humans expected them to do about legends and old stories. Hyunwoo continued, his voice steady but sad. "We expected you to trust us as we have trusted you. We expected you to prepare as we prepared, but instead you ignored our warnings and dismissed our concerns. So now we leave. The alien delegates began talking all at once. Some demanded that humans stay. Some threatened economic sanctions. Others begged to know where humanity was going. We go where we can prepare alone. Hyunwoo said, when you are ready to listen to us as equals, instead of treating us as your servants, you will find us. But until then, the galaxy is yours to manage without us, Dr. So Young appeared beside the captain on the transmission. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed the pain of leaving behind decades of work. The terraforming projects on 17 worlds were her life work. But the alien colonies had never bothered to learn how the systems really worked. They just expected humans to maintain everything forever. The atmospheric processors on Kepler 442b will need maintenance in 6 months, she said quietly. The backup systems will hold for maybe a year after that. The technical manuals are in the main computer, but someone will need to understand quantum atmospheric manipulation to use them. The Kepler colonists looked panicked. A whole world of 3 million aliens depended on those processors to keep their air breathable. Without Dr. So Young's expertise, they would have to evacuate or die. Engineer Kyung-soo stepped forward next. His inventions powered half the galaxy, but alien engineers had never learned the principles behind human technology. They just used what humans built and asked for upgrades when they wanted something better. The fusion reactors on the outer rim stations use a delicate balance of magnetic fields, he explained. The control systems are automated, but they need recalibration every few months. I have left instruction files, but they require understanding of plasma dynamics that most species have not developed. The outer rim delegates began arguing among themselves. Who would maintain the power systems that kept their mining operations running? Who would repair the reactors when they broke down? Who would develop new energy solutions when the old ones wore out? Commander Minho was the last to speak. His strategies had ended the border wars and kept peace between the major powers for 50 years, but the alien military leaders had never studied his methods. They just followed his plans and took credit for the victories. The defense networks around the core worlds are coordinated from 3 hidden command centers. He said the locations are encrypted in your databases, but the passwords change every week based on algorithms that only human tacticians understand. Without proper coordination, the networks will shut down in 47 days. The military representatives looked at each other in growing alarm. The pirate raids had already increased since news of humanity leaving had spread. Without the human defense networks, the trade routes would become hunting grounds for every criminal organization in the galaxy. Hyunwoo watched the aliens begin to understand what they were losing. It was not just human technology or human knowledge. It was human dedication to keeping the galaxy working, while other species focused on their own interests. We did not want to leave, he said, his voice growing softer. We loved this galaxy. We called it home for centuries. We made friends among your people and shared your joys and sorrows. But friendship must be between equals, not between masters and servants. The transmission screen showed scenes from across human space. Empty research stations that had developed cures for dozens of diseases. Abandoned diplomatic offices that had prevented countless wars. Silent factories that had produced the tools and medicines that kept galactic civilization running. Human ships were disappearing from every system. Their sleek white vessels with the blue Earth symbol were joining massive convoy fleets heading toward the galactic rim. The exodus had been planned for months, but kept secret until the final moment. On Earth itself, the great cities were empty. Humanity had built backup colonies in secret over the past century, hidden worlds beyond the rim where they could rebuild if the galaxy ever turned against them. Now those worlds would become their new home. The alien delegates watched in growing panic as the scope of human departure became clear. It was not just the military leaving, it was everyone. Human doctors were abandoning hospitals. Human teachers were leaving. Schools' human engineers were shutting down systems that had run perfectly for decades. Please reconsider, the Andromedan scientist begged. We can discuss the ancient threat you mentioned. We can form a committee to study your evidence. Hyunwoo shook his head slowly. We have been discussing it for 40 years. We have presented evidence to 17 different committees. We have shown you archaeological proof, from 12 dead civilizations. But you always find reasons to delay, to study more, to form new committees. He gestured to someone off-screen, and the sounds of the ship preparing for hyperspace jump grew louder. When you are ready to act, instead of just talk, you will find us. But we will not wait any longer for you to take the threat. Seriously? The galaxy is in your hands now. Use it wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the alien delegates staring at blank screens. Across the galaxy, human ships began disappearing into hyperspace. The great silence began as humanity walked away from the civilization they had helped build. 3 months later, the first systems began to fail.